Hello guys, welcome back to this channel. And Spider-Man No Way Home pulled off a true nerd Christmas miracle by bridging with the past eras of the Spider-Man franchise and opening the multiverse to crazy possibilities, new histories and future timelines that we never thought possible. Now the movie has been out in the world for a substantial amount of time. Now everyone is talking about it, and I assume if you took the risk of wandering onto YouTube that by now you probably know the who and what I'm hinting at. But the truly interesting parts are the how and the why. So whatever you have seen online, if you have not seen Spider-Man No Way Home, the film yet, spoiler warning before I continue. So yes, the rumors were true. Past Peter Parkers, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield do portal into this movie. And they're not just quick cameos. The film spent several scenes catching up with these characters in the lives they lived. So I'm gonna explain what happened to these guys and what happens to them and their converted antagonists when they return to their native realities, and how that completely revolutionizes the future of the MCU and the Sonyverse. Okay, when we last saw Tobey Maguire Peter Parker in Spider-Man 3 back in 2007, he had overcome Venom and Harry Osborn Goblin, who died in his arms, a traumatic event that he refers to in this movie. But the important lesson that he learned was that he forgave Sandman Flint Marko for his involvement in Uncle Ben's death. And after he had turned off Mary Jane, he throttled back on the dance floor a bit with a more apologetic, slow dance and no kiss, suggesting that these two still had a bit to work out. And now we learn that Peter has aged up into a seasoned mentor who's gone through quite a bit. He encourages Andrew Garfield that he actually is amazing and worthy of his own happy life. Tobey says that he worked out things with Mary Jane. He also says that he spent many years thinking about an anti-serum for Norman Osborn, and he says that he had gotten stabbed at one point, but most importantly, he realizes that his webbing coming out of his body makes him a freaky exception to the rule of Spider-Man, who is supposed to use mechanized web shooters. Meanwhile, Andrew Garfield Peter Parker hints at some dark places that his character apparently went after the 2014 Amazing Spider-Man 2. That movie ended with Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy defeating Electro, but that version of Harry Osborn Goblin led to Gwen's death fall in Peter's poorly timed whip that caused Gwen to hit the ground. Peter stood vigil at Gwen's grave throughout the seasons like a whomping willow, until a video of Gwen's graduation speech inspires him to get back on that horse and save a kid from Paul Giamatti's Rhino. But now we learn that friendly neighborhood optimism was short-lived, with Peter never really got over Gwen's death and stopped pulling his punches. He says getting bitter and rageful, it's not explicitly stated, but it is at least implied that he might have beaten someone to death or nearly to do it. The 2014 film was setting up a big Sinister Six event to come after it, with Gustav Fierce and Harry Osborn plotting to assemble a team that would include the Rhino, Lizard, Doc Ock, Vulture and either Mysterio or Kraven the Hunter. And there were rumors that the next movie's plot would have involved resurrecting dead characters like Norman Osborn and Captain Stacy via cloning. Yeah, just sounds like a nasty gritty future for that Andrew Garfield Peter Parker. Tobey Maguire Peter Parker, on the other hand, had his own future for a fourth film in the early storyboard stages from Sam Raimi, with Peter apparently gonna deal with the Sinister Six lineup that included Bruce Campbell Mysterio and John Malkovich Vulture, hopefully something a bit more lighthearted on the other side of that dark chapter with Venom. But again, he does get stabbed at some point. Interestingly, Andrew Garfield also asks if magic is real in this universe too, and he and Tobey's first instinct is to thwip each other, so it sounds like one or both of them had some scene future involving magic or multiverse mechanics. Remember, some Doctor Strange variant did exist in Tobey's continuity.
Doctor Strange. That's pretty good. But it's taken.
These are the once hypothetical timelines that Tobey Maguire Peter and Andrew Garfield Peter are now returning to. However, the events of No Way Home changed all of these characters in ways that likely resulted in new branch realities. Forming in the multiverse, Norman Osborn Green Goblin is returning to his 2002 movie timeline, a changed man, but he's still a murderer who had already killed his colleague Dr. Strom, the Oscar board of directors, their military partners, and several others. Sure, he would likely escape his death in that greenhouse, but Oscorp would be rudderless. His son Harry wouldn't pick up his father's anti-Spidey legacy because, you know, no Goblin mirror goes to corrupt him. Arguably, this timeline would not have a Doc Ock either, because Harry probably would not have taken Oscorp in that same reckless direction of experimental investments that his father was into. Meanwhile, the Doc Ock of No Way Home returns to a separate timeline than the one that Norman returns to in Otto's reality. Norman still died as the Goblin, but Otto returns as a changed man, back in control of his mechanical arms. However, tragically, since Otto said that he left right as he had Peter by the throat, that would mean the moment of his return is right when the fusion reaction was already way out of control, meaning that redeemed post No Way Home Doc Ock would still have to drown himself to stop that reaction. Flint Marko returns to a separate timeline where both Osborn and Octavius were dead, essentially the same continuity of the end of Spider-Man 3, except now he does not have his sand materialization powers, so really no Sinister Six future for that guy. Similar deal for Dr. Connors Rhys Ifans, who returns to his 2012 era timeline with Andrew Garfield Peter Parker. Connors probably in jail, but with no Lizard mutation, this could be even before Lizard has struck Captain Stacy, meaning it's possible Gwen's dad would still be alive in this new timeline. Max Dillon returns to a 2014 timeline with his new hunky appearance, but no electricity powers, probably back to that moment in the electrical columns, which might give enough time for Gwen Stacy to leave safely before Goblin got there. But with all of these, it is important to remember that Andrew Garfield Peter and Tobey Maguire Peter were separate incursions beyond those villains that warped in from later points in those alternate histories, because Doc Ock remarks that Tobey Maguire Peter looks older. Therefore, the timelines that these two Peters return to are also separate from the ones that the 5 villains return to. And those Peters' absences, even for a day or two, resulted in a shift of perspective for those two men that likely altered their destinies from where they were headed. That means Doctor Strange's spell and Peter's interference at least created 7 new branch realities that were not in the multiverse before. 8 if you include Eddie Brock's Venom. So any sense that you got the ending of No Way Home was just resetting the multiverse back neatly to where it was before. The upcoming film Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness revealed its first teaser after the No Way Home credits, and it heavily implied Strange's actions with Spider-Man and No Way Home. Of course, along with his choices in Doctor Strange Infinity War and Endgame, all of these destabilized the multiverse so badly that it is now beyond repair, or as Mordo calls it, desecrated. So we are not necessarily done with the worlds of Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, or any of their foes. They are all now part of a quaking cross-pollinated multiverse in which they all face new destinies. So with that in mind, can we please now get an Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man 3? The man has earned it. And if MJ deserves a return I love you from Tom Holland, so does Peter number 3. Now that we reached to the end of the video, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Leave as many comments as you want, and I hope I see you very soon. Thanks for watching.